All right, yeah, it's 12:03. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our sixth webinar, Plant Postdocs Career Panel, highlighting diverse plant science paths organized by plant postdocs. I'm Sandra Hoffberg, a postdoc at Columbia University in New York, studying phylogenetics and herbicide resistance in amaranthus with Darren Eaton. I'm also the Secretary of Plant Postdocs, and I will be moderating this webinar. Today's webinar will be 60 minutes. We will start with each panelist introducing their career path and how they navigated the job market. Each panelist will have 5 to 6 minutes to speak. The second half of the webinar is designed for you to interact with our speakers by asking questions about their career path and experiences. We would like you to submit your questions through the Q&A box, and I will try to summarize the questions and group them into common themes. If you ask the question and you would like to clarify or interact with the speaker, please use the raise hand option and we will unmute you. Before I introduce today's speakers, Allison Barnes will introduce Plant Postdocs organization and our recent endeavors.
Thanks, Sandra. Okay, so I'm just going to give you all a brief overview of what we do here with our organization of Plant Postdocs. So hopefully that if you are not already a member of Plant Postdocs, you'll find out what we do and maybe you'll want to join us. So my name is Allison Barnes. I'm a postdoc at North Carolina State University, studying lipid biochemistry and the role it plays in local adaptation to highland environments in maize, working with Ruben Regan Alvarez. I'm the vice chair of Plant Postdocs, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to tell you about what we're working on. So Plant Postdocs started during a conversation between Arif Ashraf and Sunil Kanchemani Raju about how every postdoc position is transient, and we're constantly on the lookout for a more permanent job. So after this discussion, they decided to create a Plant Postdoc community so that we can explore, discuss, and support each other as we prepare for our future career paths in academia, industry, or wherever that may be. So Plant Postdocs is now over a year old. I think we're approaching 2 years here. And we've recently transitioned to some new leadership roles. But first, before I talk about our leadership, I want to talk quickly here about our activities and the journey that we've been on so far. So we have a Slack group in which we have a lot of different channels to talk about job opportunities, applications, interviews, writing, and all sorts of different things. We currently have over 275 active Slack members. We have an official website, and we also have a Twitter account, which is where I think a lot of you probably find us. There we retweet job ads, different topics that may be of interest to plant postdocs and plant scientists, all kinds of different things. We have almost 4,000 followers on our official Twitter account. We also have an editable Google spreadsheet job board where we try to incorporate the jobs that we're tweeting, as well as other jobs that people send us. And that helps us to leverage information from our members throughout the world and through social media to really sort of try to catch all of the jobs that are out there and spread them on to you. We've also initiated the Potential Plant Peer Reviewer Database, which we call 3PRD. And the design of 3PRD is to help early career researchers gain experience as reviewers and to help connect editors of journals with early career researchers and postdocs who are interested in reviewing. So that is an initiative that we have closed for now. We had a lot of interest in it, and that list has now been distributed to the editors of a whole bunch of different plant science related journals. And then lastly, we do these webinars. So this is our 6th webinar. Today we're featuring diverse career plant scientists. In the past, we have organized each semester a webinar for academic jobs and a webinar for government or industry jobs. But this semester we changed things up and decided to have this all grouped career webinar. So if you look at our panelists, you'll see that they have very different careers. And then we also had a science writing, editing, and reviewing webinar last month. So all of our webinars are recorded and available on our YouTube channel. If you missed those, you can catch them there. And we're always looking to create webinars that are of interest to our attendees. So if you have a webinar, an idea about a webinar that you'd like to see, please email us. We've also recently started a seminar series for preprints and recently published papers. So this seminar series is designed only for postdocs to present. And we're also working with pre-review so that if the postdoc who presents the paper is a preprint, we have another postdoc who reviews the paper and then uploads that to pre-review. So that's something that we're working on as well. And then we're making plant postdocs more strict. Oh, sorry, I forgot this slide. So this is our webinar, our seminar that is on Tuesday. So if you haven't previously registered to attend our seminars, I just wanted to highlight this one so that you can get into that seminar series as well. And then this is our leadership team. So Arif is our chair. I'm the vice chair. Sandra is the secretary. I think in the future, we're looking to expand this team. So if Plant Postdoc sounds like something you're interested in and you want to get involved, send us an email. Or if you are not a postdoc, but you know a postdoc who would be great on our team, please let us know. We're always looking for more help. And we also have an advisory board. And so this advisory board consists of 4 different faculty members, as well as Sunil, since he's moved on from his role as chair. So we have Gabriela Auge at the University of Buenos Aires, Arjun Krishnan from Michigan State, Rob Lass from Michigan State, and Aaron Sparks at the University of Delaware. And they mostly just help us really keep things prioritized, come up with new ideas, and help facilitate discussions between permanent job and us postdocs. So I think that is everything I have. Just please, if you have a suggestion or an idea of something that you'd like to see or an initiative that even maybe you would like to lead through Plant Postdocs, send us an email. And to join information on joining our group, visit our website at plantpostdocs.com. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and I will give it back to Sandra. I think I've talked long enough.
Thanks, Allison. All right, so let's jump right in. I will introduce our speakers, and each of them will have 5 to 6 minutes to talk. At about 5 minutes, I'll give you a little wave and let you know that 5 minutes have gone. So our first speaker is Ping-Tao Ding, an assistant professor at the Institute of Biology at Leiden University. Then we have Chantal Martinez, a processing tomato breeder at HM Claus. Jennifer Robeson, an assistant professor of biology at Manchester University. And last but not least, Brian Waters, the founder of Scientific Writing School. So Ping-Tao, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you for the invitation from the Plant Postal organization. The first time I actually got the email from, I believe it's from Sano, I was really like delighted, and also I'm so kind of like excited to see this happening, because I have been on my postal for 7 years. But it's only the last year when I found my job, and then I realized, okay, there's such group existing. So it's good. And just to briefly introduce my kind of like career path, I'm originally from China. Actually, my hometown is Wuhan. I guess everyone knows Wuhan now after the pandemic. And then I did my PhD in Beijing in one of the institutes in China. During my PhD, I was lucky to get a fellowship to study abroad, which is in University of British Columbia for 2 years exchange program. And after that, I went to the UK to start my first and the last postdoc, which lasted for 7 years. And then the special things about my postdoc career is I basically funded it myself. So I got basically two fellowships in a row started with Marie Curie Fellowship, and then I got BBSRC Future Leader Fellowship, and then now I'm here in Leiden in the Netherlands. So in terms of like a final job, to me, the special thing is happening during the pandemic, actually. So that makes things, everything is more difficult, I believe. And also I think the difficulties is equal to everyone, not just postdocs, but also some of the students particularly, and even for people who have a family start there in abroad as well. So for me, for applying the job during pandemic, what I can share is basically you just have to try and also search for any opportunities. So the funny things about my current position here in Leiden, actually, it happens because one of my friends, he basically just whispered saying that, oh, this is the last day of this job position for submission. And I think this is just perfect for you. And I look at the post of this position, actually, indeed, is the exact design for me. So now I was like, okay, so I'm going to apply for it, but it's only 1 day left. So nothing what I can do really for, make it profounding. So I just simply change the name of the institution and what I submitted to other universities, for example, Cambridge, and then submit, and then just hope for the best. And after a few months, and I got an invitation for interview for this particular position. And then it just happening very smoothly after that. But during that period, I also got an invitation for a university from Germany, from the UK, and I got a decline from America. There's always like up and down. And then actually what actually makes everything for me special is I spent a lot of time during the lockdown to prepare for grant application, because some of the universities, they have scheme that you have to bring money in. So I wrote 2 grant proposals during the first and second lockdown in the UK. And actually one of them got into the even peer review, and then eventually I withdrawn all the applications because I took this position eventually. So basically there's no, for me, there's no grounded rules of how you're gonna do it for finding your position. It's just like, if you think you're ready, and then just find help from anyone that you can get. I guess I will answer more questions and I will share more experience in more details later on, like what helps I have got during their 12-month pandemic job hunting. I think that's enough for me today. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Great, thank you. Chantal, do you want to share?
Hello, everybody. I'm Chantal Martinez. I am currently a processing tomato breeder at HM Close, and I just started really learning about tomatoes last September. So the past 10 years, I was getting my master's, PhD, postdoc in wheat genetics. So it's been a big skip going from row crop to vegetable. But what I'm learning now, and what I learned like when I was taking this position, is that a lot of the technical skill sets, all the transferable soft skills easily translate. It's just kind of a different organism I have to learn, but that's one thing to tackle rather than everything and jumping somewhere else. But but one thing, even though I've jumped from wheat to tomatoes, one of the things that have been consistent throughout my career path is that I've been studying breeding and genetics quite intertwined. And so, like I said, the technical skills are still there and have been easy to be able to apply them quite differently. So I was in wheat breeding at Washington State University, where I actually got all 3 of my degrees, which to some may be a dampener, but it's what I wanted. And then so by the time I was finishing up my PhD, I was able to get some funding to go work at Cornell University to learn some techniques from the scientists over there. And so I spent 2 years on that project over there. And as I was that last year, 2 years of a postdoc is really quick. extremely quick. And after the first year, I started my job hunt because I was in the mindset of what's the point of a postdoc? It's to get us to that permanent position. And so even though I was in 50% through my postdoc, I was already starting to look for the more permanent position. And so that year prior to getting a job, I was really honing in a little bit what my goal is. And so I think that's one thing I would like, most people to take away from is, if you don't know what your aim is today on what you want in a permanent position, that's fine. You're not behind or anything. It's just as you start working on your day-to-day research or projects, what is it that you kind of want to keep doing? And for me personally, it was, I really love the science, no matter what project I changed from. So that was a constant. So I wasn't worried exactly like what position or what exactly like wheat versus tomatoes or what science project I would be doing. What I was looking for was people that I'd be working with. And that's where sort of happiness is my priority, and that's where I would find it. So everybody's goals will be different. There's a whole range of things, but once I got that realization of what my fundamental drive was, I was able to apply for not just professorships. I applied for professors, universities, public, private, and then throughout that entire year, I spent 11 months applying for jobs. So it's a long journey. Let's put those expectations up front. I was particular in what the jobs I did apply for. So I applied for 25 different applications. Right off the bat, let's look at these numbers. I had 12 immediate rejects, no interviews. 8 of them I had brief interviews, and 2 of them I really didn't like, and I pulled my application. And then 3 of them I made the top candidates. So out of 25, really 3 I made it to the end. So just know it's rare and very few often that when you go and look for your permanent positions or your postdoc job application search, it's not a quick one and done. Let's see, I'll pause there. I'm sure there's many more things I can talk about because I'm fresh, just started recently. So I could talk about getting jobs all day.
Thanks. Yeah, you guys are good on time. So we'll have plenty of time for questions. Feel free to submit them in the Q&A box. Jennifer, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jennifer. I am an assistant professor of biology at Manchester University in North Manchester, Indiana, right? So a lot of people, when I say Manchester University, think, oh, University of Manchester. No, I'm not in England. I'm in North Manchester, Indiana. We're a PUI, so primarily undergraduate institution. We have a student body of 1,100 undergrads, and then a small PharmD program that's actually on a satellite campus about 40 minutes away. I knew I wanted to teach. So when I was doing my PhD, I loved teaching, right? Like that's where I got my joy, right? The research is fun, don't get me wrong, but I really, really liked interacting with students. So I started way back when I got my undergraduate degree. I went into a PhD program, but I got pregnant during that PhD program, and the PI said, okay, you're now a master's student, bye-bye. So then I had a baby and a master's degree and no PhD and no idea what I was going to do now. And it took me a couple of years to get over that, like, moms can't be in science BS that I was fed. And I got an adjunct position and I really enjoyed it. And from there, I was like, I can do a PhD. So I had a first grader. I moved away from my parents and to a whole different city and did my PhD from his first through fifth grade, and I did it. So it wasn't fun all the time, right? But I don't think anybody's PhD is fun all the time. And it's a lot more complicated. I had to be really focused when I was in the lab because daycare charges $1 a minute if you're late, right? So you have to leave on time regardless, unless you want to like lose a bunch of money, because they literally charge $1 a minute if you pick up your kid late. So I knew I wanted to teach. and I just started looking for teaching positions. So some professorships. I wasn't looking for adjunct, but instructor, which is a teaching path that you can do that's different than necessarily a professor. So there's no research, you're just teaching. Usually it's at the larger schools that you'll teach all the 100 level bio classes, you know, have like 1,200 students, and that's all you do is teach Bio 101. So I applied to a bunch of stuff, community colleges, instructors at non-tenure track role at large universities, and then professors at small universities, like where I ended up. I did this while I was a PhD student because I didn't want to postdoc with my kid, right? I didn't want to jump him around postdoc to postdoc to postdoc to postdoc to postdoc as he was entering middle and high school. I was like, I don't think that would be a good idea. I applied to 11 different positions over the last like year and a half of my PhD. And I only got an on-site interview here at the job that I was eventually offered. So it takes a while and it takes a lot of rejection before you finally get there. I would definitely say you should keep your ear to the ground. So I only knew this position was open, even though I was stalking Chronicles of Higher Education and sciencejobs.com and Twitter. I only knew about this job because my grandfather made an offhand comment that a professor was retiring in the biology department here. And I was like, what? So I immediately ran to the website, it's like human resources, let's go. And sure enough, they were looking for a biologist, and it wasn't a plant biologist, but it was a microbiologist, which I also have experience in from my master's degree. And I had taught microbiology as an adjunct for years. And I got my interview and I've been here 3 years. PUIs are really, I love it because I thrive on teaching, but I teach 24 credit hours a year. Right? Like I teach 24 credit hours a year. That's a lot. And this upcoming year, I'm going to have 29 because we're shorthanded, right? So you have to love teaching if you go to a PUI. I hate writing grants, and Manchester doesn't care if I ever write a grant. As long as I do research over the summer with my students and take posters to local meetings, they're completely happy with my scholarship. So I'm where I want to be. I don't have to write grants. I still get to do research, and I get to teach, which gives me joy. I would definitely say, kind of echo Chantal, find your happy and then look for jobs in your happy. And even if they're not like exactly what you studied, I got a job for a microbiology professor. I studied cold stress in soybean. Right? Like molecular and physiological changes in soybean during the cold. But I'm a microbiologist professor. Take the shot. What's the worst that happens? You don't get the call back. So that would be my advice. Find your happy and take your shots.
I like that advice. Brian?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, everyone. I guess I'm the senior member of the group. My career path took a lot of twists and turns. Starting with my bachelor's degree, I changed majors a few times, and I changed schools one time. So I ended up, taking 5 years to finish my bachelor's. I started a master's degree. Switched into a direct to PhD program. That didn't go that well, and I switched back to a master's and got out, finishing that in 3 years. And then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that point. So naturally, I went to real estate school. And by the time I finished that, I realized I wanted to stay in science. My master's advisor offered me a part-time job in the lab while I was looking for something permanent. And I got interested in research again, decided to try again for a PhD. And so I did my PhD with actually 2 advisors in 2 different departments, nutritional sciences and in plant sciences. Managed to finish that in a reasonable time in 4 years. And then during my PhD, kind of during the last year, I felt like I didn't want to go into research. I wanted to go into teaching. And so I started applying for jobs at primarily undergraduate institutions. I ended up getting 2 offers, and I took one of those at a small college in Texas. After the first year, I realized it wasn't really a good fit, and I did want to do research after all. So I looked at getting back onto the PhD track or the research track. Got a postdoc at UMass in Massachusetts, and so after 2 years teaching, I went back to research. Did a postdoc there for about a year and a half. I did a second postdoc at the Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas. And during my second year, I started applying for jobs. I applied for some industry jobs. When I had a good track record at getting interviews, 3 out of 3 there, but I didn't get any offers. And I kind of abandoned that path, decided to go for tenure track at research institutions. And I went on 3 interviews for assistant professor jobs, and took an offer at the University of Nebraska, where I met Allison and Sunil. I was there for a little over 10 years. I got tenure after my 6th year. One of the important things I started doing there was I started teaching a scientific writing course. And I taught that for 7 semesters. I also opened up a scientific writing center called the Scientific Writing Lab, and ran that for a couple of years. And then in 2019, my wife had a job offer in North Carolina. And, you know, I'd enjoyed being a professor, but I was kind of ready to do something different. And so I decided to go with her and look around, see what I could find. And I found a job pretty much right away as a grant writing specialist at a consulting company in Raleigh. And I worked at that job for almost 2 years. But during the last year, you know, I started thinking about something I'd been thinking about for a long time, actually, starting my own business, which is what I ended up doing just this month. I launched my own business doing teaching scientific writing and also doing writing consulting. And yeah, that's basically my story. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. So we already have some questions in the Q&A box. And so this is a question about academic positions. So how did you prepare your research proposal for an academic position? And I'll add on to that, if you could comment on when you started to prepare your research proposal and how you distinguished your research from your advisor's research. Pingtao, do you want to start with that?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So this is a really good question. Actually, I don't think I did a good job on applying for American universities, because it's totally different system compared to the system in Europe, for instance. So basically what I did, well, I got several friends already got a faculty position in America. So based on their successful cases, what I can share with is basically start with thinking carefully. So what's your research niche? right? So I believe different applicants have a different stage of your postdoc. Some people like start to look for jobs even like 2 years after their postdoc. Some people like me, like maybe probably already very senior and start to look for jobs. So so then you need to know what you really passionate about, and then can you really draw a reasonable, let's say, 3 objectives to expand with that, and also ask yourself about your short-term and the long-term vision. So once you have those components ready, then you need to ask your friends who are probably know you the best, and also there are also scientists to give you some advice, and then you can start to write. And of course, once you got the 5 pages ready, check with, you always need a mentor, to be honest. To me, like I mentioned, a lot of helps I got during my job application, and also even during the whole period of my career path development. So one key component of whenever you feel ready, or whenever you feel like you need help, just go identify your mentor. I think this is something is missing from our system, because nobody is really like know when or where to find help for, especially postdocs. So I think the system for ourselves, we have to identify a good mentor for that. So this is a perfect question for that. So if you know someone that good at mentoring a junior scientist, no matter whom you met in the conferences, or just anyone really, and then so ask them to if they have time to read your like application, and I'm pretty sure they will give you help, and then and you can start from there. And then also I can tell from all the speakers here, the panel members here, we will share one similarity is we tried many times for application jobs, and we failed most of the time. And then so if you keep trying, and then sometimes you fail, then you know there's something wrong. But sometimes it's not just because you're wrong, because it's just you're not fitting to their the expectation of their job. For example, for me, like some of the jobs I applied, and I know from my heart that I'm not 100% fit. So if I got some rejection, I got some feedback from them, I know what's wrong. But if you know what you really want to work on, you don't change your plan just according to the jobs, because even you got invited for interview, you're not going to do well. So you only behave well when you know this is 100% of what you are working on. So if you want to write a proposal, something like 5 pages, is really something that you want to work on. Yeah, I guess I will stop there. Sorry.
Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I'm going to add just real quick that your research proposal is really, really important. But you also should think about how viable it is depending on what kind of position that you're applying for. So like, again, at Manchester, we're super small. We got 1,100 undergraduates, right? And we have people that apply to positions here with, they want to do this really expensive thing. And it's like, we don't have a clean room for you to even do RNA. Like that doesn't even exist on this campus. So know what you want to do, but also know if it will fit and how you would change it if like you only had undergraduates to work with, you didn't have masters and PhDs or postdocs.
Yeah, to add to this, so I applied for a couple faculty positions and I got to the interview stage, but not the offer stage. Unfortunately, both of them were the assistant professors who applied got the position, not the postdocs. But something we can't compete with when we're postdocs right away. But as I was applying, I was looking for resources. I knew that a recent person who got a professor in the job positions I was applying for, same, sort of basically the same job. I reached out to her and asked her, do you have an example of, can I look at your application? I won't share with anybody else. And she was nice enough to show me, kind of like we had the same like project ideas, so then I could see sort of how she structured her proposal. But I also found on Twitter there's a whole group, Ross-Ibarra, I'll link it on here, but there are statements that include both industry job applications, successful industry job applications, and successful academic job applications. And some of them are very thorough in terms of they include the little details of things like your teaching statement and your research statement and your diversity statement, if that was included when they applied. And so when I found that resource, it gave me a good idea of what some success was, how they were able to integrate certain details into every single statement and have a cohesive flow and talk about the immediate steps and how to get there, but also the 5-10-year plan, but still fit it within 5 pages. And so yep, got it. It's in, Sunil added it. And so that was a good start for me. And then from there, I had a lot of people look at my applications. And so even though I had a deadline of, I had to submit the application in, I had 20 people looking at different sections. And it's a big request to, ask them to look at the entire package. So I had 5 people looking at my diversity statement, 5 people looking at my teaching statement, different sections or different like early stages, having thought conversations about, I'm about to throw this idea. What do you think about it? Can we discuss this? And so I guess don't do it alone if you can. Try to, pull from your resources and your peers.
Yeah, I might just add a couple things. I think those are all really helpful answers. Someone who's been on search committees and has been an applicant, I'd say one thing to look out for is make sure you're also talking about, and Chantal mentioned long-term, but not just setting up for the next 3 or 4 papers, but what is your research program going to look like for the long term? And you might want to talk about where you're going to apply for grant funding, what kind of funding agencies will be appropriate, and just lay out a plan that you have a program in mind, not just 3 or 4 papers that are next in the pipeline.
Yeah, thanks. That sounds all like good advice. So I want to transition a little bit because one thing that all of you said is about the job search. It took a long time. There were lots of applications and unfortunately some rejections. And so I wanted to ask about, how did you keep your spirits high during that time, and what sort of carried you through? And then once you did get the job, like what was that transition like? Does someone want to go first?
Can I go first? So yeah, I think I experienced a very dramatic period of time to accept the first rejection, because I thought I could get interview. Because I was confident. I was comparing myself to the previous candidates of that particular position in the past several years, because I was waiting for this kind of application for a long time. Okay. And then I prepared the application of the statements of research and also my research vision, and also about where I'm going to apply for grants. And I prepared even like slides of my presentation. And then I got rejection. And the reasons, I asked for reasons, right? So they didn't tell me reasons for the first time. And I was like, why? And I don't want to say which institute I applied as a disclosure. I just want to say the reason I got is hilarious and also very damaging my confidence. So what they said is like, Pinta, you're a good scientist, but I don't see any high impact paper from your work in the last few years, even though you got 2 prestigious fellowships. So you're not good enough. And I was like, I have some paper coming, and then I believe they're good enough for this position. And they was like, okay, then you have to wait until you're ready. You can apply again. So that's the first time I got really a big downtime. And then how do I get over it? Actually, I didn't get over it for a long time until I really apply for other places. So basically, you will gain confidence when you have some reward. That's how I experienced the period. So then I applied for other positions and other places, which is even maybe more prestigious places than that particular institute I applied. And I got into interview, surprisingly. Actually, I didn't expect that. And I got into interview. And then I know, okay, maybe it's not that bad. And I didn't change anything on my CV, like say publication whatsoever. It's still the same because during the pandemic, everything moves very slowly. And the only thing I only changed is basically I was trying to keep myself, let's say, tell myself many, many times, you are good. They didn't find how good you are. So it's their loss. So you have to tell yourself that most of the time. But the most important thing is for me, eventually I got over this particular part is I also asked several mentors, actually senior PIs of my friends, I mean, as a friends of mine. And then, so just ask them for like objective opinions about my application. And they said, actually, there's nothing wrong with your application. I think it's just purely, they're not looking for your expertise. So they have to give you a reason. And then that's horrible for that person to give you this reason. So they have to pick up a reason to reject you for sometimes. So for this kind of type of things, I think for the early career scientist, you need to be, well, even though I say so, right? So, but I have to tell you that you have to be confident about yourself. I believe everyone, if you are well trained during your PhD and then you have done well during your postdoc, if you come across something that people reject you, just forget about it. Just leave it behind you, because there's so many other positions that are still available, right? It's almost like you're looking for, let's say, you are inviting someone to dance in a bowl, and then someone just reject you, and then you will say, oh, there are many other people around, so you just ask for other people to dance. I'm not sure if it's appropriate, but that's my way of doing it. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you, Pingtao, but I would say not think of it as a rejection. Okay, so there's going to be 100 people, 200, 300 people that apply for every position, and they can only choose one. They're only going to bring in 3 or 4 to interview. So statistically, it's pretty long odds that you'll be selected. And if you're not selected, I don't like the word rejected. It's just we're not selected.
It's a very frustrating process, and I don't know if I got over it, and I don't want to deal with this again. And so, yeah, I agree. I like the outlook of you weren't the selected candidate. And I think the frustration, rather than rejected, I think the frustration came from maybe I wasn't looking at it like that in the past, because I am a very highly qualified candidate for every position I applied for. And then when I wasn't the one selected, it was frustrating. And then when every peer and mentor around me was just like, you're going to get the job you want, you're the best candidate out there. And then I'm just not getting the job. And it's just, yeah, you're saying that, but come on, I need a job. But I think that I guess just pushing through was the best I could do. I don't really have some end all be all like advice on how to really get through it. It's just a tough period, and know that even the really highly qualified candidates around you are going through the same frustrations.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, so we have a question about networking, and I want to particularly pose this question to Chantal, who did multiple degrees at the same university, and I'm wondering if you changed your networking strategies to meet more people, if a lot of like the professors that you were surrounded with didn't change as you progressed through your degrees. And I'm wondering if you use LinkedIn and if that was the most successful networking tool for you.
So first part, as I was towards the end of my PhD, I was starting to network more. I was getting more confident about the research I was doing and what I wanted to do next. And so when I went to conferences, the conversation steered to like, I'm going there to learn rather than my focus of going to a conference back in the old days when we could, was to really meet different scientists that I was reading my papers on and try to have my mentors introduce me so that my mentors could sort of give like that background, like who this person is, rather than me just telling a stranger like who I represent and how my work ethic and whatnot is. So in terms of how I was transitioning out of my university into my postdoc was I sort of, I took a route of asking my mentors who I want this in my postdoc, who would be the key people that I could potentially get it from. And so they listed off like 2 or 3 people. And so 2 years before I got my PhD, I was setting up to meet those people and talk about their science and sort of build a project together. So I ended up focusing on one scientist, Dr. Mark Sorrells, and I tend to say that him and I courted for a couple of years until we wrote a grant together, and then I ended up working with him. And so I think that was a long-term commitment to try to get to my end goal. That does take, I guess the downside is that did take a focus and a hindsight, like this is where I want to be sort of situation and time, and the ability to meet him at conferences or to have that connection. Now, how to do that? Okay, so but maybe not everybody has that time. And so when I was transitioning from postdoc into, the next more permanent position into industry, yeah, LinkedIn is a resource. I'd say I agree that, I myself don't even respond to many like unknown requests unless somebody drops a name and says, oh yeah, Chantal knows you. Allison, can I, have a Zoom 30-minute coffee chat with you? Unless I know somebody that knows somebody kind of thing. But I think one thing that I realized, and I would like to reiterate to people, is that don't forget all those people that you met and worked with in your bachelor's and your master's and your PhD. They are peers who know people likely are in the industry, and they know somebody that they worked with. And so they could introduce you either by email and say, and then you could just sort of get a quick 15-minute introduction conversation and have that like Zoom or Teams face-to-face as best as you can in the middle of, and this would probably work, for long distance, even when we are able to go to conferences, but you want to meet somebody. And the unfortunate thing about, I like the question being posed of how to network with people in industry, because it really is about who you know. And so the only reason I got into the private vegetable world was because I knew somebody who told the hiring manager, you should talk to her at least. And then I was able to prove myself and get the job. But that was somebody I knew in my PhD. And so she knew my work ethic and she could vouch for me. And so number one, networking is important. And so it's something that I don't necessarily want. I wish industry wasn't like that, of who you know system, but it is. I don't know how to change it. So if you do, get to me and I could help. Try to.
Nice. Yeah. Does anyone else want to say something about networking? Otherwise, we can move on to a different topic.
I can just add a short thing. It's the same thing as what Chantal told us. Basically, I have just one example. So I got a friend who got a job I managed a job in Bayer. So a few years ago, actually, he was also looking for a faculty position in America. And eventually he went to industry. The way he got that is based on networking. So how does he achieve that? So he used to work with me in the UK, and what he did is basically he found basically we have a scientific board members, and he talked to this person during the some just casual chat over our meeting, and after a few years, his expertise actually met one of the job criteria in this person's lab, and he went all the way to America, and this person have some friends in industry, and then introduced him to that position, and then he got it. So basically there, you have to know people who knows people. I think that's the key point. Yeah.
Yeah, one other LinkedIn tip is, when you send a connection request, make sure you attach a note to it. If you don't know someone that knows that person, then just explain why you want to connect. I'm really interested in learning about your field, and so I'd like to connect with you so I can learn more about it. Something like that would really be helpful. Just a connection request with no note, is not usually very successful.
Okay, thanks. So it seems like we'll have time for maybe one more question. Let's see, I was going to ask how, I guess, like, what skills have been helpful in transitioning from academia to industry? Brian, maybe you can talk a little bit about being an entrepreneur and moving from academia to, having your own business.
Yeah, I can try. So I did work in industry for a couple of years, and I was able to do that because of my writing and communication skills. So those, all of you that are postdocs are writing, you're writing publications, or you're writing grant proposals or fellowship proposals. So I would say, just develop those skills, really become aware of the conventions and the techniques that you use. If you're in a lab, you can learn some lab techniques that are important in industry. And it's really important that you become familiar with kind of the lingo and the language that's used in industry. If you come in speaking academic language to industry people, you're going to think you're clueless, and they won't really give you much credibility. So really learning how to make that transition, part of it is just learning the different culture and the kind of vocabulary that industry people use, and the viewpoints that they have about things.
One thing to add to that jargon and language is it's a whole different foreign world when you're just coming from academia. And so a tip I would suggest to do is when you're on the job boards looking at your industry positions, or start looking and noticing those words. And if you have somebody in the company, even if it's not related, can you just ask them, shoot them a quick email or a quick message on LinkedIn, say, I was looking at this job board, what does this technically mean in your world? And so start opening up, figuring out your definitions of a research associate in one company kind of technically means a technician in the academic world. And so once you start connecting those dots, it's easier to see, okay, I can start not manipulating, but editing your resume so that it fits and aligns with those job postings. And then you will become more aware of, what skill sets you actually have, in what you've brought to the table already, like you were saying, with grant writing or communication, or product development is a big one in industry. In reality, it's in academia, it's more like cultivar releases, or your products are delivering scientific papers. Like, you guys still do deliver products, you just have to recognize and be aware and readjust.
Great. Well, it's almost 1 o'clock, so I think I'm going to wrap up now, but I want to remind everybody that we have a Twitter, which the handle is @PlantPostdocs. So if you have other questions or want to continue the conversation, we can do so on Twitter and pose it to an even bigger audience. So thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today and sharing your experiences. We really appreciate your time. And thanks for all the participants for coming.